Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Black Man Speak. I'm your co-host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, D. Tommy D. Duncan the Third, otherwise known as TD3. It is Wednesday, July the 26th, 2023, Jimmy, and if it is Wednesday night,
There's certainly Black Man Speak. So, Tom, it looks like I got on just in time. I overslept today, so I apologize for the unprofessionalism.
you didn't have to
No,
tell on yourself, Jimmy.
no, it's okay. Transparency and honesty is a good virtue.
Okay,
So,
we'll talk about that later.
but anyway, I'm here now. I'm on, and I'm glad Tommy was able to get the show started on time. So, despite my lateness, so
we don't we
Tom,
don't we don't we don't start on CP time. We don't start on AP time. We start on time.
that's right. We start on time. That is correct. So, Tom, I know we have another interesting show lined up.
Yes, we do.
And this is a little different. This is just going to be a little men's talk. We haven't
Yeah.
had one of these chat sessions in a while. Um, I know this is going to alarm you, Tom. I just discovered I thought I was a Gen Xer, and until I looked on the internet, then they broke out the ranges of years that you had to be
hmm
born in for Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, all that good stuff.
hmm
And I'm actually a baby boomer.
What?
I was born in 1964,
Okay.
and Gen X starts in 1965 to 1980. So
Mm.
I am just outside of the Gen X range. So I guess I'm officially a baby boomer. So
So
we have
you're lumped into the group with the folks who fought in the World War II. Then
yes, the greatest generation. So
yes,
I'm part of the greatest generation. So um, and so I know that that's probably going to upset you a little bit to find
that
out that
doesn't accept me.
I'm not a Gen Xer like yourself,
It's
but
okay.
but
It's
it'll
all
be
good.
okay.
All right, good deal. That means that you're kind of on the edge, just like our special guest who's going to be on later today, but just in a different generation. So that
Yes,
means, Jimmy, that we represent two generations of thought leadership, and that's all good with me.
that is correct. So the baby boom generation and the Gen X generation, and I guess it's going to be a Gen Zer.
Well, it's a little bit of both, and we'll talk about that later
Okay.
when we bring them on.
Okay, let's get to our national news, Tom, and then
Yes.
so we can quickly get to our host. So what do we have today that we're covering?
Well, Jimmy, I am going to start off with probably the best news that we have today that our great fraternity that we both love uh,
Go
are
out.
in Dallas, Texas this week
Yes,
for our general convention at the Anatole Hotel in downtown or near downtown Dallas, Texas. And so the convention started technically yesterday, but really the agenda started today. We'll be going through this weekend. And so we have several thousand suited and booted, sharp, intelligent brothers who are in the house and convening on the issues of the day and taking care of business. So there is no way that I could start this show or end this show without ever letting everyone know that, hey, the alphas are in town.
and ladies, listen up. Some of those brothers are single.
So, with that being said, we want to, of course, wish all the brothers the best of luck in terms of
Yes, we
taking
do.
care of their business. We had a march for justice on Monday evening out in the downtown area near MLK and Malcolm X, and just to bring awareness to areas that we continue to focus on to fight for justice, or in my words, power. That's the most important thing in our community. And since then, we've just been working on the business of alpha, as we would say. So again, best wishes. We know we're going to have a great convention and '06. Also, Jimmy, some interesting news, economic news. I don't know if you saw that, but the Fed raised interest rates again today.
Yes, they have time, and they're going to continue to slowly increase until the job market slows down. They're going to put us into a job recession. So people beware, and make sure that you're now's the time not to be late. Now's not the time to be talking back to your boss. Now's the time to have a strategy to make sure that you're able to keep your job and that you're part of the valuable workforce, because you don't want to be part of that group that's expendable and find yourself out of work when the feds are raising rates and trying to slow down the economy. So it's going to happen. It's going to affect a lot of people. I hate when they do this, Tom. It seems like the Chinese don't have a problem with double-digit growth for their economy. They have 1.67 billion people they got to feed, so they have to keep their economy growing. But somehow, the U.S. economy growing at 4% creates a problem.
Well, for what it's worth, Jimmy, now that they've raised interest rates again, they have lowered their expectations of this recession that we've been talking about for the couple of years. The Fed has said, and I will speak in probably the words of Jimmy Stewart. As opposed to looking for a job, create your own job because we have some economy building to do.
Tom, if you can't find a job, don't sit around and wait till you ass out. You may have to go out there and create a job for yourself, a legal job. I'm not saying go out there and sling dope or anything or do any drive-bys, but yes, our people have to learn that we have to insulate ourselves, Tom, from fiscal policy and economic policy in the U.S. And there are going to be times that we're going to have to look out and defend ourselves and look out for our interests, and having a large number of our people unemployed does not bode well for us. So
And
we
that's
need,
always been the case, Jimmy. I mean,
yes,
our unemployment rate has always usually been somewhere around double that. I know
yes,
that I think
double
earlier.
the national average, sometimes triple, Tom. Um,
Exactly. So that's not going to stop people. Let's be very clear. That's never ever going to stop as long as you don't control your own employment.
and we don't. And so a lot of times we're the first out the door and the last to back in the door. So when the recovery comes, so we continue to push on this show for people to get out. And if you're able to come together, invest your money, start a business, employ some other people, provide goods and services to your community.
And the reason that it would work, Jimmy, is because among other things, we are the most prolific spenders probably in the history of mankind in this country. We are driven by consumer spending, and we are the consumerist of the consumer spending in this economy. We have literally propped up a countless number of other groups within this country. And, when we do decide to turn the corner, we'll just decide to prop up ourselves and build our own economies and take ownership of that employment that you're talking about.
Well, Tom, you're absolutely correct. I believe we're projected to spend about 1.6 or 1.7 trillion dollars this year. All of that money will be spent. When other groups are hear that the Feds have raised interest rate and the economy is slowing down, a lot of other people get into saving mode. It seems like we stay in spending mode. So the best thing for America is black people because we continue to spend our way through the good times and the bad times.
Yes, we do. We do. We've done this country a great service in
Yes, we
more
have.
ways than one, and we need to start making that, as they would say, service starts at home. That's where we
Yes,
start.
if black people start saving and slow down their spending, Tom,
Mhm.
our
We're in trouble.
recession, mild recession, easily ends up to be a major depression if
Yes.
black people stop spending.
Exactly, exactly. Moving forward, Jimmy, an update on a story that's been in the news for some weeks now. Carlee Russell, a young lady who had, the story went like this. She was out on the highway someplace in Alabama, Hoover, I think you know
Alabama.
what it is. That's outside of Birmingham, Alabama, suburb of Birmingham, and called in, I think, to 911 to report that a child had, she had found a child on the side of the road someplace, and then the phone hangs up, and then she comes up missing for a couple of days. And so then there's this Amber Alert. Um, Folks are missing. Folks are looking for her. I think law enforcement for 3 days, and all of a sudden she shows up at her parents' house, no shoes on, and then there's a lot of hullabaloo, Jimmy. But we get an update recently, and it looks like this may have been a hoax.
Yes, Tom, it's very unfortunate
Yeah.
that we have become a society that is really turned into attention whores. So the young lady was looking to get attention, possibly benefit from the generosity of social media, from people who feel sorry for her. Unfortunately, she needs some help, and so I hope she gets it. I know that she's caused some pain. I mean, legally, law enforcement is out looking for her, but in addition to that, Tom, there are currently 43 children missing in Alabama. So I'm pretty sure when folks who have their child is missing heard that someone found the child wandering on the freeway, they may have they
Mm,
may have they may have thought, hopefully, that maybe that's their missing child that she found, and was wishing for the safe return of both of them. So she may not have really thought through what she was doing. Obviously, she did. Her story fell apart really quickly, but I just hope that rather than face any kind of criminal punishment, that she really gets the mental health that she needs. And really, we just had a couple of guests on. In fact, the
yes,
wife of our guest is a
yes,
mental health professional.
yes.
So
She she
maybe
she needs some services. We need to
she, yes.
send that number to Hoover, Alabama. She needs to call in.
So maybe we may have to go back and post her number, Tom, in case the family needs to reach out to her.
Yes, yes, Jimmy. But it's unfortunate. A young lady, I think she's in her 20s or something like that, feels that she has to go to these extremes in order to get some attention. I don't know what the logic was, but there are a lot of families out there who are literally going through this. They
Yes.
have a child who's been abducted. God forbid anything worse could happen like that. And it's just unfortunate that she had to cause this type of attention. I mean, it's bad enough, Jimmy, that in our community, a lot of when I go to the post office and other places, you see these
Oh, yes, that's
pieces of
true.
paper that have a lot of kids
A
that
lot
have
of
been
kids.
missing for a long period of time, and a lot of those are our kids.
Hmm.
We need to be looking for them. And there are some reports that say that law enforcement don't sometimes take our missing children as seriously as they do other folks' missing children. So we can't afford for this to happen. But at the end of the day, Jimmy, she did apologize through her attorney. Hopefully, she's learned a lesson. They talked about the possibility of charges. I don't know if this is that
I
egregious,
hope not, Tom.
but at the end of the day, hopefully, folks have learned something about this. And more importantly, hopefully, law enforcement will take everybody's missing child seriously, regardless of this. Because
Well,
just quite
Tom, we know
frankly,
they don't. So,
this is not the
we can
first time
hope.
this has happened.
True. So, but yeah, so we hope that they take every missing child serious and do everything they can to retrieve them. But a lot of times, Tom, when our children come up missing, it's an afterthought. So other people's children come up missing, it's all hands on deck to locate them. So
Well, next story, it's kind of rooting out of Florida. One of the 2024 official 2024 presidential candidates, Ron Desantis, is in the news. If nothing else, he knows how to market himself very well, one way or another, by kicking up some storm. And some folks are jumping in. I know that you had mentioned, Jimmy, in our prior conversation that Kamala Harris has some things to say, but some of his other compadres in the party has some things to say about what happened, and we're talking recently about some comments that were made having to do something with the Woke Act of 2022 and his comments about some Africans, some of our ancestors who were enslaved, who
right.
somehow benefited from this, picking up skills as shoemakers and things of that nature. And some folks took exception to it. Our vice president did. Chris Christie had some things to say about it. Tim Scott, you know, it's politics and it is what it is. So all is fair in love and war, and they would say. But for what it's worth, Jimmy, this is kind of a sensitive subject, especially within our community, because ultimately, at the end of the day, 160 plus years of official legal chattel slavery and then sharecropping and things of that nature that come after that. It's a very sensitive issue. Other groups have their hot spots, and this is one of ours.
Yes, Tom. And so this was not a nefarious effort on the part of Florida. In fact, the two men who are the chief architects of the policy are both black. Professor Dr. Allen is one of them, and he's been out doing quite a few news interviews. The point, the purpose of it was to hopefully shed more light on slavery. And basically, the what Florida is looking to do is simply to expand the discussion about slavery in the public school system and
Expand.
expand it. So instead of just limit the conversation to a week during Black History Month, you get a week of slavery, you get a week of civil rights. Maybe you get a week of Harriet Tubman, and maybe you throw in just a little Frederick Douglass for liberal sprinkles and MLK. But that's pretty much it. That's going to be covered. And so the goal is to sort of expand the conversation on slavery by showing that some slaves were able to take the skills that they were able to acquire, like you say, either making shoes or clothes or carpentry or being, metalworks, working on horseshoes. I mean, we know slaves built the White House. So a lot of times slaves were leased out. I mean, most of the money went to their slave owners, but it was generally the policy that slave owners would let their slaves who worked outside the plantation keep 1 day of their wages per day per week. So if you work 6 days, you were able to keep 1 day of it, and the
How
master.
nice of the slave
Yeah, I
master.
know, Tom, and that's something I wish
How
I had a
nice.
system like that. And with that 1 day of wages, some
On
were able
forced
to
labor.
save up for years, sometimes decades. Were able to save up to buy their freedom. And so the point is that they were trying to show how some slaves took the best of the situation. Not that the situation was very good, because it wasn't, and nobody's trying to claim that it was a good situation, but it just goes to show the dynamic nature, Tom, of Black people to take whatever our situation is, whatever hand we're dealt, and make the best of it. Um, and so this is what the state of Florida is looking to achieve. Now they may have gone about it in the wrong way. They should have probably put a little more care into the sensitivity of the subject. But Tom, this is what their goal is. And this is what they're trying to do.
All right. Anybody wants more information in the interest of time, search Woke Active 2022, see what it says, do the reading and the research, and you'll see what it happens. I know that, a large part of the narrative has been this um, narrative that's been tied to this. But if you want to find out more, research Woke Active 2022, read it for yourself, understand it for yourself, and we.
Please do.
All right, Jimmy. Well, I tell you what, I think that is about it in
That
terms
is
of
about it, Tom.
next week. And so now what we're going to do is to bring in our special guest and our guest of honor this week, Mr. Jeffrey Shorter, who is a supporter of Black Men Speak and
Thank
our
you,
special
Jeffrey.
guest for his evening. And so we
Thank
want
you,
to
man.
thank you,
Appreciate you.
my friend, new colleague, for joining us so we can talk Black men on critical issues. And so Jimmy and I, we kind of express our thoughts, our concerns, and our issues on things. But you know what? You are in a very unique position. There are what we call millennials who are, I guess, in their upper 20s through early 40s. And then we have our zennials who are in their upper 20s on down. And you are in a unique position in that you are right on the cusp of both of them. And so I've learned a new term in my lexicon called a zillennial. You are
This is
right
in you.
on the
Okay.
cusp of
Yes, sir.
millennials and Generation Z. So
Yeah.
welcome.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate it.
Congratulations on getting married here recently.
Yes.
I know my invitation got lost in the mail, so I forgive both of you guys. But it's okay. Congratulations to both of y'all. It couldn't have happened to two better people.
So
Yes, sir. Thank you.
what we want to discuss today is, pick your brain as a young man, a mature man, a thoughtful man in his mid-20s, even though you would never know it by some of the conversation that he's able to speak of, because he speaks in a much more mature tone and
He
voice.
has an old soul, Tom,
Exactly. And
as
we
my
want to talk
generation would
about,
say.
and we want to get your thoughts on what folks within your generation's both directions are thinking when it comes to several different issues. Before we get started, tell us about yourself, where you're from, what you do, and then we'll get started with the conversation.
Okay, my name is Jeffrey Shorter. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois.
Chi-Town.
Yes, sir. Chi-Town, from the west suburbs of Chi-Town. I came down here in 2014, the summer of 2014, to be exact, the month of June. Came down here with my family. I'm the oldest of three other siblings, Siobhan, Justin, Jada. I currently live in Fort Worth, Texas. I work for the United States Postal Service. I'm a postman in Plano, Texas. Um, there's 3 post offices. I'm at the one at Heshkos and Coit.
Okay.
And my interests are sports. I love to cook. I love family, and I just love to be that big brother. So those are a couple
Gotcha.
of things about me.
Well, hey, we appreciate you having you on your show, on our show this evening. We look forward to hearing what you got to say and, holding things up for the young cats out there who are trying to do it and do it the right way.
Well, Tom, my first question off the top
Okay.
is going to be seem like a lot of young men, a lot of young brothers, you're around your age, mid-20s, seem to have a fear of responsibility. Is when you talk, when I suggest that the goal in life should be to find that woman that you can partner with in life, and because you can't build a nation until you build a family, and that part of our charge biblically is to be nation builders. And so, how are you able in this age of I don't want to get married, I'm not looking to settle down, I decide to make that leap because you've recently have gotten married. I believe you guys are still newlyweds.
You're a product of your environment. You're a product of your environment, and I say it all starts with that foundation and having those people in your corner to guide you and lead you the right way. So I made the decision to marry Kendra off my beliefs, off wanting to grow, off like I said, I'm big on family. So um, and it took the people in my corner. I'm first and foremost my mom and dad, and leading me there and letting me know you're better as a team, as you say, you're better as a team.
Great
So
answer.
Good deal. Good deal. Hey, I appreciate your feedback on that. What do you see, talking to young guys in both directions of where you are in terms of their mindset, in terms of relationships, in terms of responsibility? It may be marriage, it may not be marriage, but you strike me as a guy that's probably, I don't want to say a cut against the grain of what we might see, but since you see both sides of the equation, what are young cats saying about this nation building prospect? And we see so much, fortunately and unfortunately, in social media and other areas. There's not a lot of reinforcement of Black family.
Just not a
What do
ton.
you see? What are you seeing? And maybe this is just something that we're not seeing.
me personally, I feel like one of the big things will be communication, and I feel like for whatever reason, it's a bridge between your generation, the I guess the parents and the kids, and you have to bridge that gap. So my biggest thing will be first communication.
Gotcha.
My biggest thing
Gotcha.
will be communication. So that's the only way you can bridge the gap if we all put all of our perspectives together and are able to see both sides.
What does that look like when you say communication, bridging the gap?
Communication and bridging the gap for us, having these conversations, having these talks, being vulnerable. That's where it starts at the home where we're able to have the conversation and talk about these topics at hand.
So for young men who may have grown up without the structure of family in place like you did, uh, I mean, what can be done for us? I mean, reaching out, communication, to say, hey, there's a better way or a different way to look at life, and maybe the way you're looking at it or thinking about it or your strategy towards life to shy away from responsibility may not be the best choice.
What can be done? You asked me what can be done about it.
I mean, yes. How can we sort of bridge that gap? Take cats such as myself and Tommy and
Ah,
guys of our generation to reach back and say, look, responsibility is nothing that you have to be afraid of. In fact, it makes you a better person. So you need to embrace responsibility, take it on. That's a challenge in life. Not to run away from your challenges, but to accept them and face them. But it seems like we're a society that's really built to maximize our pleasure and to so we migrate towards the pleasurable things, video games, hanging out, living carefree, and tend to try to avoid the hard things in life or things that we think are hard.
Mr. JR, to answer your question, I think it takes people like you, sir, being more vulnerable and teaching us these things. A lot of reasons to my success, I say, is because of going to people, asking questions, and they're being vulnerable, telling me things, and me able to put my spin on it and use what they said as well. So that's what I think is going to be the change. Vulnerability. That's going to be the number one change. Us as Black men being vulnerable and me seeing that, okay, I'm not crazy. Um, you got guys that have went through the same thing as I've been through.
So when we look at, and Jim and I, we've talked about this on
Hmm.
several occasions, that we have a growing number of young people within our community that are, being raised by single-headed households. I mean, they started in
Yes,
the 70s,
too many.
and it just progressively has gotten worse, it seems, over each generation. And so we are into at least the second, maybe going on to the third generation of young Black men who are being raised primarily, but not in every case, by their mothers. And I think that does have an impact on their psychology in some way. What are your thoughts on that? And I know you're in a fortunate position because your parents were together with you growing up, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you probably had buddies and friends who were just raised by their mom. Doesn't make it good or bad, but when it comes to psychology, the nuances of manhood as they become an adult, what do you see from your perspective as how that has impacted young men um, being raised primarily by one parent, and especially in the cases where they don't have a father?
Um, for the most part, I feel like it has made it sad to say negative.
Yes.
And I say that because more so the commitment process. If you've seen your mom do some, for instance, and you've been seeing her all her life, one person do one thing, the fear of meeting somebody in it works, the fear of making compromises, the fear of changing things about yourself. I feel like for some people that have been in that situation is not worth it because you can't, for a lot of people you can't do something that you haven't been shown.
True. So true. And
Otherwise,
therein lies the biggest problem, Tom, is lack of knowledge. And by not seeing a man in a household having to deal with family issues, financial issues, the pressure sometimes on how to overcome that, without having that reference, it is hard to just have someone tell you that you need to deal with this or you need to suck it up, you need to man up. I mean, that conversation doesn't quite replace years of um, visually seeing this for yourself.
Also, I just feel like money has changed a lot. You have you have on one side women making the same money as men, and you have two people come together with this. So a lot of what I'm seeing too is I don't have to compromise because I can do it by myself. I make the money, and
and who is that coming from when you're saying somebody not having to compromise?
that's coming from both man and woman, and I feel like you more so I would say the females more so. I see a lot of females say I don't have to
Yes,
compromise because I do make those six figures, or I do make you got people making more than six figures, and I feel like it's unfortunate because, like I say, a child has to see it, and everything is so much pressure on being perfect. But I mean, as being in a relationship, you see that everything is not going to be perfect, but also it's about seeing a healthy way or having those disagreements and respecting each other boundaries, and going about it in a mature aspect.
Yeah, a lot of times that happens, and a lot of women falsely believe that somehow whoever is the largest moneymaker in the union gets to call the shots. And I'm going to say I don't believe in that philosophy. Um, I'm old fashioned. What am I, part of the greater generation, Tom?
Yes,
So
the greatest generation.
to me, men lead households. Women need the security of a strong man to deal with their insecurities and bad choices that they've made in life. And so, um, every household that I know of personally that is headed by a woman, especially in a relationship where she's taken the primary leadership role, has ended up in disaster. In the
Well,
end, she doesn't like it, having to take on that level of responsibility, Tom. So men are much more suited for it. It's probably why we die a lot younger than women. But I would suggest for men out there, do not let the fact that you may be married to and have a spouse who makes more money than you sort of diminish your role as a leader of that household. You're
if,
still a leader regardless.
how do you? Let me ask you this though. This is the challenge. If you have a woman who has grown up, for instance, in a household where she was raised by her mother, who was the primary provider, the breadwinner, and she becomes an adult and she becomes the primary breadwinner and provider. She happens to get married. She's been responsible. She takes care of her business. She takes care of her bills. And so the question becomes if she's in a second, possibly third generation, what is her logic in having to negotiate with someone if she is the breadwinner in terms of decision making?
You're asking me?
No, I'm asking Jimmy. And that was
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
based on his last comment.
Uh, uh,
Based on his last comment.
Now, Tom, you're going to get me in trouble here. But
Well,
it's okay.
hey, it's real talk.
So here's the thing, Tom, is that um, insecurity is what kills women. Their psyche, and every time they make a bad choice about the man that they believe they could see themselves spending their life with, and it turns out to be wrong, it's a scar against their psyche. And we know what happens as women get older and those scars build up. It creates more distrust and mistrust. So, in order to deal with that, to counter that, um, most women today need a man who's emotionally and mentally strong to deal. You have to balance out the insecurity that women have. And I can tell you this right from personal experience. If you find a woman who has a good core and you're willing to put the time in to deal with all of her insecurities, and that sometimes that can be great, depending on how many bad choices she made before you came along. Um, a good woman is worth her weight in gold or platinum or any other thing. It becomes the most valuable thing you can have in your life once you get them past the insecurity. Once they have the security of a strong foundation, a home that they can raise children in, don't have to worry about the utilities being turned off, or food on the table, when they can just free to be themselves and allow love to flow out of them because they are very emotional creatures. So when a woman loves you and she loves you the right way because you're giving us the security that she needs, man, there is nothing more powerful, more valuable than that. Unfortunately, you got to go through some insecurity and deal with some insecurity issues to get her to a point where she fully trusts you and fully will follow you. And that is the goal of men. And sometimes we don't teach that. And if you don't have a father in the household to show you how to do that by being the rock, I mean, your goal is to be the Jesus Christ of your household. So you need to inspire faith and confidence and trust in you as a leader. That's not to say that you're not going to make mistakes, but when you do, like the young brother said, you got to be honest about it. Communication, talk this through. Like, hey, I know that ultimately I made the decision. It didn't work out. I own that, and I'm going to do better in the future. What you don't do is just let that fester and try to run away from it and hide. Like, okay, I made a mistake, but I'm not going to fess up to it. We're just going to move on. We can't talk about it. So communication is key with women, and certainly dealing with their insecurities. But you have to deal with that, Tom, and because until she gets to a secure state, she's not going to be the best that she can be, a positive influence in your life. In fact, she's going to be a problem if those insecurities continue to grow. Because every time she sees something, you scratch your butt the same way my ex scratched his butt, and we know how that worked out. Or or he used to sit down and watch the game, and I take the trash out when I ask him to, and we know how that worked out. So you don't want all those things, that scars that she is holding on to keep resurfacing. So you got to do things different than all of her exes. You got to be the positive influence in her life and the stability that she needs. Eventually, if you can do that, she'll get past all that. She'll realize she has a good man, and following a good man is never a problem once you get to that point where you fully trust and put your faith in him.
So what that means, Jimmy, I think, is that, it is not impossible for women, even doing it by themselves, to raise strong, emotionally balanced, healthy men. But it's definitely more difficult when you don't have a father in the equation, preferably in the house, raising that young man, which is somewhat problematic, because the model is a young man sees a mother who is the leader, who is the provider, who is the person who is having to take the knocks and the bruises in order to make things happen, to put food on the plate. And if for whatever reason she doesn't find that person, that young man grows up in a psychology where he learns that, the woman is the leader, the woman is the provider. So when he grows up, it's a little bit more of a balance for him to take his natural role if he's not seeing that father figure, that provider doing that already. So
True.
it's an adjustment. And I think all that being said is that we as men, older men, have to do a better job of putting our arms around younger men, especially in their formatory years, their teenage years, even if it's not in the same household, to ensure that we're showing them what the right model is supposed to look like, to make sure that they at least have an alternative in terms of what they see. But with that
True.
being said, I don't want to get too far off the rails here. We need to get back to our special guest. And I have a couple of questions for you that I want you to, it's kind of two sides of the same coin. In your generation, what do you believe are the most significant things that have influenced your life, short of your parents, your father and your mother, whether they be political, whether they be social? I mean, you're a quarter of a century old, maybe a year over a quarter of a century old. You've lived through COVID. You've lived through the first African-American president. I don't recall if you were probably very young when 9/11 happened. Or maybe
Yeah.
just a
Yes, sir.
child. What would you consider to be the most significant world events or events in this country that shape your thinking, your psychology, and or shape the world for you?
Um,
As a black man in particular. I mean, George Floyd, a lot of things that have happened out there. What are the
True.
things that some of the defining moments that as a young man have shaped your thinking and how?
for has shaped my thinking.
Yes. Outside of
The,
your parents, we know that they are number one.
the biggest one
Yeah,
for
world
me
events, things that
that
happen.
will forever change my life would be COVID. And I say COVID because on your phone, you can be on your phone and you're using it. And eventually, if you don't do a software update, it does it for you. And I feel like when COVID happened, that's what happened. All of us had a software update. We were going and going and going, and eventually an update needed to be changed. You have people walking more than they never walked before. You have people talking to their wives more. You have people talking to their sons more. You have people getting more into religion than they ever had been before. They probably was religious, but they really got to build their connection more with God. So COVID, that definitely would be the top one for me.
Yeah, COVID was
What, what,
major.
was, what was the most important thing that it taught you? What was the most important lesson learned?
Family, 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 um, communication, and as a person, I realized and I looked around and I saw that some people only see from their perspectives. But when you're going through this journey of life, it's about seeing your perspective, but also understanding everybody else's perspective. And that's how you're able to network. But if you can't see somebody else, if you're always talking about yourself, or you always can see it from one view, you're not going to network with the people you need to network because you only see it from one side. So Those would be the
Okay.
major things.
So let's see if we can lighten it up a little bit. Here's a very important question if you're going to be living here in Texas. Chicago Bears or Dallas Cowboys?
Ah, when it comes to what, Jimmy?
Huh?
I'm a
When it comes
fantasy
to what?
I'm a fantasy football person, so I'm more with the players.
No, you can't get off that easy. You got
Oh,
you,
come on,
you,
Jimmy.
you got to pick one.
Both teams got issues, bro.
You have to.
I'm a Bears fan, man. I grew up watching
Oh
Devin Hester.
man.
I grew up watching Devin Hester, man. So
Okay.
with Devin Hester and changing the game, forced kickoff return, punt
Yes.
return,
How
it
long
made me
have
a
you been
fan.
in the Dallas Fort Worth area? It's been more than 10 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so after 10 years, you have to give up any loyalty you had to any previous
No,
team that you
sir.
have and
I
become a
would,
Cowboy
man.
fan. Um,
Dak Prescott, he changes the game for everything.
if
That's the missing key.
now
That's
Well,
let me
Jimmy,
know if we got to come do a conversion intervention for you.
Jimmy, you talking about holy water or wine?
Maybe a little bit of both.
All right, all
So
right.
the
All right.
conversion process is secret, but
uh,
it does work.
hopefully
Well,
win, man. Hopefully this year's a better year.
Jimmy,
We'll
maybe
see.
after the Cowboys win another Super Bowl, you can get to that conversion process.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully.
I don't know how long you guys dated before you got married, but a couple of young guys I've spoken to in the past, they tell me I'm old fashioned. They tell me I've been out of the game too long. That the things that worked when I was coming up as a young man don't seem to work today with women. They tell experiences of going to the club, for example. They see someone that they're interested in. They try to buy her a drink, and she gives them a business card. And the business card has a phone number to an escort agency. And
Oh,
so
gee.
if you want to date, if you're interested in dating me, you have to go through my service and pay for it. Have things really changed that much in the dating scene? From just your experience, I know you ended up with a great woman, but I'm sure you probably had some dates before Kendra, and or you talked to some of your buddies who maybe are still out there trying to find the right woman.
My main thing, things do happen like that,
Ooh,
really
ouch.
quite often than what you would think. But my main thing will be just be genuine. You
Mhm.
know, I think you got so many people trying to be something, and it's like, who are you really? And people know when you're being real. People, I'm big on energy. People can feel your energy, and that comes with, like you said, the trust. I think Mr. JR was talking about trust. That's the more you yourself, the more you're genuine, the more you're gonna find a person you need to be with.
So
You know, when I
you gotta pay for the date and pay them for the pleasure of their time. I mean, what is things time? What is the world coming to?
yeah, you
Well,
gotta
we live in this generation. Everybody's monetizing something, so I guess that's their way of doing it. Let's get back to some issues from a looking at your peer group in your generation. What is you as a young man? What do you consider? Not speaking just to you, but your generation. What is, in your opinion, the greatest challenge or the greatest opportunity facing your generation as a young man? Not you specifically, but your generation. The greatest challenge or the greatest opportunity, and why?
um for the number one answer for that will both be the greatest challenge will be too much information, and the greatest opportunity will be too much information.
How is that?
It's a gift and a curse. Too much information, such as you can have too much information, and nowadays with so much information such as AI and all these other things, you don't want to fact check, you know. So when you have this person that has all these followers and they can tell you something, you're going to run with it before you're more gullible before
That's
you even
true.
see if it's true. But it's like it could be you, like you talked about Dallas Cowboys. It could be Zeke Elliott. Zeke Elliott can post something, and you have an emotional attachment to him, and he can say da this. You're going to run with it before you even check it because you're like, oh, if he said it, it must be true.
True.
So and also it's your biggest opportunity because with so much information, you got people switching careers and looking into careers that they never thought about before. And with that, making wages at a much early age that they never thought about before. and that was never seen before. And that's why you've seen usually one race or one gender doing this. And now it has changed from IT to trucking to cooking. I mean, just everything.
True.
Everything is changing because of the information out there available. So
Yeah, there's so much information at your fingertips these days. You're right. Everybody can be a SME, an expert in just about whatever subject they want to be if they put the time in, because the information is definitely available to them. So you're correct about that. And I totally would wish that more people would think rather than just accept information from these influencers and just take it as a gospel, and do a little research and form your own opinions. But you're absolutely right. Far too many people take whatever the person that they look up to, whatever they say, as a gospel and go run with it.
yes, sir.
Let's talk about another institutional concern, and that is the younger generation and the black church. Jimmy and I grew up during a generation where you didn't ask whether you could go to church or not. You were being drugged to church.
Three,
Uh,
four days, three,
and,
4 days out of the week, Tom.
exactly. And we are now, living in a time where, you can watch church on your mobile phone. And quite frankly, Jim and I have had this conversation before where, the younger generation is distancing itself from what we consider to be the more traditional virtues of attending the church, supporting the church. They have their own theology when it comes to the role of the church in the black community. What is your generation? What are you seeing within your uh, core cohort, I believe is what I'm trying to call it, as it pertains to the role of the church in the black community? Because I think that is shifting and changing.
I don't think it's shifting and changing. I think if anything, more people are religious than before. I think more people are sinning more than before. But I think also the difference is people realize the church is what's inside you. You know what I'm saying? You are the church. You are whether you're Christian, Muslim, they're going to see the way you maneuver through life, and they're seeing your good deeds, and they're seeing how you move, and it's what's inside you. I feel like the church house with
Yes.
generation after seeing so much hypocrisy and seeing so much yeah, like I said, so much trauma of their parents maybe not finding the right church that where it showed a positive outlook and show how things need to be run, that people are just finding different avenues of
So to
doing
answer the question, what you're saying is their philosophy when it comes to religion and spirituality is evolving, not the so-called traditional model where you see more families or young people going to church. What you're saying is they're taking individual ownership when it comes to their religious and or spiritual
Oh,
philosophy.
plus, Tom, the
Yes,
message of
sir.
the church today is not compatible with a lot of the thinking of young people today.
How so or
So,
how not?
well, I mean, the church today is, let's say, focused on its own survival. It's not about the necessarily the message; it's about the message that's going to generate the most tithing and contributions to the bottom line of the church. And some young people are smart enough to figure that out for themselves. So when you go to church, you want to hear something that's going to uplift you. So, for instance, me as a man, if I go to church, I want to have a message that's targeted at and why God calls on me to be a leader of my household, why He calls on me to walk a certain way, to be the certain strength and a rock for my spouse and for my family, and to be responsible. If I'm not hearing those messages, Tom, if it's all about uh, um, you know how much I give and to give till it hurts and till it bleeds, because that's what God wants me to do, that doesn't say anything to me personally other than you want my money. And it seems that's kind of where church has been for a long time, and so there's no wonder that they're losing young people by the millions because the message is not there for them. We don't even
Mhm.
preach abstinence anymore. We don't tell young ladies to wait till they're married. Because why? Because that's not a message that's going to get you money in the church. Women dominate the church, so women want to hear messages um, that they're going to make them happy. If you want them to give, because the brothers are not there, the men are not there, so the pastor targets the message towards the women to make them feel good. Because that's where the money comes from, and that's not necessarily going to bring in the masses of young people when the message is tailored about money.
Good deal. Before we go one step further, I have got
We
to.
got questions?
Oh, well, a couple of thoughts, but we've got a lot of folks that we need to make sure that we take the time to acknowledge who've shown up and on our chat line this evening. It's been very, very active. Of course, would like to welcome my cousin, Miss Audrey K. Booker.
AB in the house.
Exactly, who is a strong supporter of Black Men Speaking. We want to thank you for coming out.
Yes.
Miss Celia Reese, thank you for coming out, Celia, and supporting us this evening. Good evening to you as well. Miss Dominique Bowman out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. A-Town in the house, Chocolate City. Thank you for joining us tonight. Miss Tennille Shorter. I bet you that's someone that you know, Jeff. Tennille Shorter has joined us this evening, so we want to thank you for showing up tonight. John Broussard, what's going on? The lack of exposure to a two-parent household is crippling. So, yeah, they coming in and talking, and I just realized I'm not looking at our chat line, so we need to make sure that we check that out. Armanda Brown, you got some props, Jimmy. She said, nicely said, Jimmy. I don't know what she was talking about, but it's something that you said that resonated with her. Oh, my goodness. OMG. Veronica Daniels is in the house.
Oh, Veronica, our book club founder. Okay.
Exactly. So you're right.
I'm the only one to acknowledge her as a founder.
Okay. This is very insightful, Jimmy. This time I agree with Jimmy 100% regarding how to gain a woman's trust. Okay.
Very important.
Gotcha. And let me make sure that I've gotten Marion Square. We want to thank Marion. She's been on our show. She's been a regular, so we want to thank Marion for showing up as well. Quincy Austin. Okay, is that a new one coming on? True. We'll find out what that is later. Bear down. All right. Thank you very much, Quincy, for joining us tonight.
Yes.
And
come back, please.
Exactly. Audrey Booker, oftentimes young men and older men feel they will be judged if they show their vulnerable side and will be judged negatively. Listening is key. A good woman will motivate a man, not enable him.
True. That's very true.
With this, we want to thank everybody who's joining us tonight. We have a little bit less than 10 minutes. The time is going extremely fast. So let's get in a couple of more things that we want to get your thoughts on, and then we will call it a wrap for this evening. Mental health. We had a special on this a couple of weeks ago. And, mental health is something that, Jimmy, we dealt with, but was somewhat of a taboo issue among other things within our community because this has now become mainstream. Jeff, young men in mental health, learning to acknowledge that maybe everything isn't okay. Maybe their headspace isn't in the right place. Maybe they should get some help. Depression is a real thing. Suicidal thoughts are a real thing. What do you see in your conversations among your peer group about mental health? How seriously do they take it? And are we starting to take the time to say, hey, maybe I need to talk to somebody. Maybe it's a father, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's my brother, maybe it's a professional. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts that everybody in my circle and people I'm around and working with the Postal Service has been taken really seriously. A lot of these things you can do, for example, for as moving up with money and or moving into different leadership programs. Those are great things, but a lot of people don't prepare you for when you get into these things. So you don't get but when you're not in that car seat, you don't see it until you're in it. You get what I'm saying? Right. So when they actually get into it, it's like, man, I didn't realize this was going to happen. I didn't realize that was going to happen. So mental health is definitely being talked about a lot. I feel like you got to have that mentor. You got to have somebody like a JR, somebody like a Tommy Duncan you can go to, and be able to talk to. I feel like you need to be more vocal. Don't let it get to a level to where you act out in a manner you don't want to. You know what I'm saying? Discuss it more, and like once again, be more vulnerable.
And Jeff, one of the things you just said about mentorship, we come from an ancient people that were very communal, we were very tribal, we're very close, and we communicated. I mean, our we didn't write things down. We used our memory. We told stories of our ancestors. We could go back 1,000 years of knowing who your father was and grandfather and your father's father on back. And so we've gotten away from a lot of that. But you're absolutely right. We need to get back to the days, especially with our young men, because women kind of have it. They get to talk to each other. They're much better at communication than we are. But the men need it also, and especially young men need older men to talk to pass down some history and some education, some knowledge. Whether you act on it or not, at least you have it.
because
So
because you have to see it. That's the
yes,
main thing. You have to see it. And for so long, if the person you look up to, they're not talking about these things. You have no idea that they're going through these things, and you're thinking they're perfect. You don't even know how to handle those things in a mature manner or at a level to where, like I said, it's still healthy.
and plus in a society that expects you to be on top of your game all the time, that's a great deal of pressure, especially for young people. And if you look at your life and you're thinking, I'm not on top of my game. There's some cracks here, and I may fall through on them if I don't get it together. But you're not sure how to get it together. Man, that's a great deal of pressure to go through life and be the best version of you that you can be. So yeah, having someone you can talk to sit down with. Because I could tell you, I'd probably still be married to my first wife if we really had parents that we could talk to when we ran into trouble. The things that we thought were major, looking back on it now, was sands of grain. I mean, they were so minor and so trivial, but to young people who don't know any better, we thought they were major. So having someone that you can discuss your issues with, to tell you it's going to be okay, that you believe in and trust them, goes a long way. Tom, we
Yes,
probably have time for one more question because we have only a couple of minutes left.
Right, and before we get to that, I want to acknowledge a couple of other folks who are on the line today. Elisa Patterson,
At least in the house,
Counselor Elisa
okay.
Patterson. Sounds like she's a little bit under the weather this week, so our prayers
Hope
for
you
you,
feel better.
for your speedy recovery. Of course, Uncle Asa Arcade Milan, who is one of the co-hosts of the African Genius podcast, dedicated to Pan-Africanism, their concepts and their ideas, and the beautiful Miss Tanya Hall
Oh,
on the
Tanya in the
line
house.
today. Exactly. So we want to thank you for supporting us and being on our podcast and making sure that, hey, we're having the right conversation. We want to thank you for your support. So with that being said, we have maybe time for one other question. And this is something that can kind of resonate with you. Not a political question. What do you believe is the impact of your generation having its first Black president, 2 terms, and now first female vice president in your generation as a young person? What impact do you think that has on your generation?
the first thing that comes to mind is that quote is you can be whatever you want to be. And it's becoming more and more realistic because you're seeing people that look like you in these certain positions. So I think it gives people faith. I think it gives people hope. I hope it gives people a sense of to um, make sure that you're taking things more seriously
Well,
because it is opportunity out there, but you have to put you have to put yourself in position for you to be in that door. So that'll be the first thing I would say.
Well,
well,
Jimmy,
I wish you were around to talk to my nephews, man, because some of them are knuckleheads who don't quite believe that they could be whatever they put their minds to. So
Yes, sir.
that's a very good message. That's a very good point. Very
and
poignant.
Jimmy, we are right at stopping time.
Right at stopping time. Okay. Well,
I got a
Jeff, man,
question.
yes,
Yes, sir.
sir.
I got it. Because you were talking about the women's insecurities and all that
Mhm.
stuff and building trust. And one thing I just wanted to add on to that, if you are going in a relationship, my method and the method that works for me or that it helped me find my wife and gain my wife and have a relationship we have is the army mentality. You have her best interests, and if somebody knows you got their best interests at heart and they have your best interests at heart, you'll always win because you're not thinking about yourself. And that's why I say military. You're always supposed to be thinking about the man next to you. If you're in a
True.
relationship, always think about how to make your wife better, and she should always be thinking about how to make you better and looking out for you. And you're by naturally you're going to win. I mean, when I first met Katie before she was my wife, um, I mean, little things that I didn't even recognize, she had already had my best interest for it. And I realized right in that moment, I need to do those things too. And when I did that, it just built trust because you're taking yourself out the equation. As I got older, I just realized it's not about me. Um, I'm 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 the you're the engine. You're the engine. You keep things going and you keep the motivation, but it's more parts to the car, and everybody has to be on one accord.
As a man, that's going to be the most difficult thing you're going to do in your life is keep your woman happy, but it's also going to be the most rewarding thing that you do in your life. Um, with a good woman in your life, you are 10 times better as a man than what you are without her. So if you think that you're better off not having a spouse, you're absolutely wrong. Having the wrong spouse could be bad, but having a good woman in your life makes you 10 times better, more man than what you could be by yourself. So I'm with you, Jeff, 100%. I'm very happy for you and your wife, man. And I wish you guys nothing but love and the best.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, folks. We want to thank everyone who joined us tonight. We want to thank everyone who's watching. We want to thank
Now,
everyone.
Jeff, don't be a stranger. Now you have to come back sometime, anytime you want to, man. This is called Black Men Speak for a reason. Although we do allow women on the show also, but if you're interested in coming on the show and you have something you want to say and share, reach out to Tommy Duncan. What's our email address, Tom? Do we have it in the overlay? Can we look
You
up
know, we
real
don't have
quick?
it here, but we can definitely make sure we get that out.
What is it? The BMS show
BMS Talk Show
at
at ATT.net.
gmail.com. Yeah, just reach out to us and let us know.
Yes,
We're open.
and that's at att.net, not Gmail.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
BMS Talk Show at att.net.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you
All right.
once again, man.
Hey, thank
Very,
you
very
for
much.
joining us
All
tonight.
right. Thanks, Jeff. If you don't mind, hang around for a second as we close the show out.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, same time, same channel.